Liberal Viewer present.
So, Bill Clinton once claimed that when it comes to picking presidential candidates, Democrats want to fall in love while Republicans want to fall in line. I think there's a lot of truth to Clinton's claim, which may explain why I feel such early strong support for Barack Obama's leadership qualities. But I'm no political virgin, and Obama's not my first political love, and I've even been hurt before. So, I want to go in with my eyes open, including assessing realistically what I consider one of Obama's biggest vulnerabilities, his relative inexperience, particularly on national security matters, which could especially hurt him if there's another big terrorist attack in the United States before the election. Now, I'm old enough to remember another young senator running for vice president who tried to solve his inexperience problems with this comparison.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought the presidency. I will be prepared to deal with the people in the Bush administration if that unfortunate event would ever occur.
Senator Benson.
Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Well, though Dan Quayle still got elected vice president, that comparison didn't turn out so well for him because he just didn't have the leadership qualities of a JFK. Barack Obama, on the other hand, is one of the most inspiring speakers since JFK. And I think there's evidence Obama is already playing to the JFK comparison. One of JFK's big issues in the 1960 election, for example, was the missile gap. And I noticed similar issues raised in the parts of a recent Obama speech you can see right here.
You got a healthcare gap, you've got an achievement gap. There's an empathy gap. There's a gap in terms of sympathizing for those folks in New Orleans as bad as sympathizing with folks elsewhere. And here's the worst part, the tragedy in New Orleans happened well before the hurricane struck. Because in many of those communities, there were so many young men in prison, so many kids dropping out, so little hope, a hope gap. A hope gap that still pervades too many communities all across the country and right here in Alabama.
And when Obama talks about the hope gap, he's identifying an important part of leadership, because the best leaders inspire through hope. In contrast, George W. Bush, even at the peak of his leadership ability, seemed to lead more through fear and anger than through hope. George W. Bush also failed in leadership because real leaders ask for shared sacrifice, not tax cuts for the rich while a war is fought by the few. In fact, asking for shared sacrifice is such an important part of leadership that one of JFK's most famous lines was,
"Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country."
And Obama has learned that leadership lesson, as you can see when he reminded his Alabama audience.
It's not enough just to ask what the government can do for us. It's important for us to ask what we can do for ourselves.
So what do you think? Is Barack Obama more deserving of the JFK comparison than Dan Quayle was? And on the bigger question, in times of war and crisis, more than experience, don't we need a real leader who can bring us together as a nation with hope instead of fear?
YouTube, you decide.